Chinese government wants to use the travel industry to present China in a positive light, and they're getting foreigners to do it for them. But there's a dark side to Chinese tourism that travel vloggers won't show you. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Matt Ganeshta, filling in today for Chris Chappell, who spent too long on X this week. And now he looks like this. We've been making China Uncensored for more than 12 years, bringing you uncensored news about what's really happening in China. And aren't you tired of it already? Well, according to Chinese media like China Daily, now is not the time to listen to others talk about China. Now is the time for foreigners to visit the country so they can see the real China. Just like a Marco Polo of the new era, according to the giddy Global Times. Marco Polo? Oh, so you'll be blind and screaming after they harvest your eyes. State-run Global Times even made a cartoon showing such a Marco Polo setting out from the West to explore the diversity and wonders of modern China. It's like Dora the Explorer, but if Swiper was swiping Uyghurs. He's accompanied by a private guide, a panda named Dream, who wears a Global Times hoodie and takes Marco to all the officially approved locations. He even gives Marco a Global Times newspaper, as well as letters from Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Because if anything appeals to kids these days, it's newspapers and letters. Why don't you toss in an atlas and a rotary phone while you're at it? Know what those are? Let us know in the comments. Now, there has been no word on whether Marco was allowed to refuse these lavish gifts. But in any case, countless foreign vloggers have heeded the CCP's call and gone to explore the real China. They've marveled at the bazaars in Xinjiang, where they inquired about large packs of condoms, which turned out to be shampoo. I imagine that made for some awkward moments on dates. That's not the type of volume and moisture they were looking for. Vloggers have quote-unquote freely experienced Tibet under the strict supervision of an official guide, where they have had meaningful interactions with the locals, and they have discovered the wonder that is Tiananmen Square, as seen from the outside because the square was closed off for people without a permit. I guess you could protest that, but I don't think protests at Tiananmen Square end well. But whether vloggers like these know it or not, their depictions of China fit neatly into Xi Jinping's mission of having people tell China's story well. This mission has been a central focus for Xi Jinping since he officially came to power in 2013, and it essentially revolves around telling stories that make China, under the Chinese Communist Party, look as positive as possible. Kind of like how a sensitive artist who struggles to make a better life for his people is the most positive way to describe the story of Mein Kampf. This is spin control at its finest. So naturally, these stories tend to center around countering Western lies about the so-called human rights abuses that take place behind the scenes in so-called regions like Xinjiang and Tibet. Regions that have been visited in recent years by many vloggers claiming to show you the real China, even though the selfies in the real China would probably get way fewer likes. At the same time, telling China's story well conveniently leaves out the dark side of, well, everything. That includes the dark side of China's tourism push. Chinese New Year, which takes place in January or February, is a major opportunity for China's domestic tourism every year. Hundreds of millions of people all get time off from work all at once and often travel home to see their families or just go on vacation. And it's an opportunity for Chinese authorities to really show off China's glamorous side. But some authorities seem to have been a tad too eager to tell China's story well. You see, in China's northern Shanxi province lies the historic city of Datong. The local authorities there suggested that shopkeepers in the old area of the city keep the lights on at night throughout the New Year festival. To keep the mood festive for the tourists and show Datong in a good light. Literally. However, keeping the lights on turned out to be less of a light-hearted suggestion and more of a heavy-handed order. Because when one shopkeeper by the name of Yue closed down his shop for the day and turned off the lights before rushing home to take care of his 1-month-old baby, he got a call from the local authorities telling him to return to the shop to turn the lights back on. If you need any more proof of how childish the CCP is, they're literally afraid of the dark. Maybe they're just so cranky because they keep missing nap time. Yue refused, so the authorities dispatched uniformed officers to his shop. Footage from Yue's surveillance camera shows them breaking open his door and forcing their way in to turn on the lights before just leaving again. Because nothing shows off China's glamorous side more than literally shining a light on government overreach. Yue later posted a video of his broken door when he arrived at the shop the next day. Footage of the incident soon went viral and ignited intense outrage directed at the local authorities responsible for the incident. Chinese social media users shared online how the affair reminded them of the government's draconian COVID lockdowns, during which time health workers in hazmat suits broke into people's homes to drag those that did not comply to quarantine centers, and even killed the pets of people that had already been sent to quarantine. This is normally where I'd put in a mental health break, but after that, a video of puppies would just make you feel worse. With pressure mounting on the local authorities in Datong over the break-in, they eventually issued an apology letter saying that there was poor communication which led to misunderstandings, which incited negative public opinion. Ah, yes, that age-old misunderstanding between "please don't break into my shop" and "Hulk smash!" But this apology somehow failed to soothe the situation, so the authorities tried again, this time blaming the incident on their impatience for quick results, a crude and heavy-handed approach, and a lack of service awareness in our work. They only broke in because they care so much. Definitely doesn't make it sound like all of China is in an abusive relationship with authorities. The statement brought the former editor-in-chief of China Blog magazine to write on the Chinese social media platform Weibo that if you have any experience in writing official documents, you will know that when such words appear, the people who made mistakes won't lose their jobs, nor will they even be punished. That's despite China's criminal code, which describes how officers that unlawfully gain entry into a private residence must be punished. But of course, asking CCP officials to follow China's laws is like expecting a 4-year-old not to peek when playing Marco Polo, unless their eyes were harvested by the CCP. At any rate, authorities in Datong and elsewhere in China are feeling the pressure to tell China's story well. But it's also about making money. For years, Chinese local governments grew dependent on selling land to developers to sustain themselves financially. But since 2020, China has found itself in a massive housing crisis. This, combined with the country's wider economic slump, has left a lot of municipalities and regions dangerously short on funds. The situation has sent local governments on a frantic search for alternative revenue streams, so a lot of them are looking to tourism to make up the shortfall. It was a real light bulb moment for them. And you better keep that light bulb on! Datong itself has been struggling with reduced city funds, and leading up to the scandal, the local government had poured a lot of resources into getting ready for this year's New Year festival, hoping that it would boost the income from tourism. So you see, it all could have come toppling down because of one unlit shop. But this isn't just a Datong problem. Other authorities across China are so desperate for revenue from tourism that iconic views, beautiful landscapes, and historical landmarks have been blocked behind payment walls, literally, in order to try to squeeze more money into depleted government coffers. It's only a matter of time before they build a great paywall to cover the Great Wall. One user on Chinese social media summed up the situation in a comment in 2023 saying that the mountains and rivers of our land are like our mothers, but we have to scan a code to see them. Please don't give them ideas. I don't want to see babies needing to pay a government fee to breastfeed. Local authorities have also tried to cash in on major hits, like the video game Black Myth Wukong and the animated movie Neijia 2, to try to promote their own localities with the aim of becoming the next travel hotspot. Some are hoping to find the magic key that will unlock a tourism sensation, similar to that experienced by Zibo in 2023. Zibo was just an old industrial and mining city in the eastern Shandong province, but then in March of that year, videos of its barbecue scene started to go viral on Chinese social media. A combination of barbecue hype, a reputation for friendliness, and a Chinese population just emerging from COVID lockdowns transformed Zibo to a magnet for outside visitors practically overnight. The city saw hotel bookings shoot up by 800% compared to the year before COVID, making it one of the most popular destinations in the entire Shandong province. All because of barbecue. So, your move, vegans. Tourist activity got so intense that there were reports of barbecue vendors only sleeping 4 hours a day in order to keep up with the customer demand. But thanks to the craze, Zibo saw 4.7% growth in GDP for the first quarter of 2023, mainly boosted by retail, tourism, and dining. Not everyone was into the Zibo rush, though. Some argue that the hype around it was a sign of a social wasteland, a symptom of a society that's all about consumerism, an empty social spectacle driven by China's hypocritical youth. Man, those kids would love capitalism. Believe what you will about the Zibo hype, but the fact remains that mass gatherings over something as innocent as food on sticks is about the only kind of mass social gathering tolerated by the Chinese authorities when it isn't directed by the CCP. And sometimes they don't even tolerate that. For example, last year, the city of Kaifeng in the central Hunan province looked on the verge of replicating Zibo's success. The city had begun to draw attention due to its renowned soup dumplings. But what quickly drew even more attention were the students from the neighboring regional capital of Zhengzhou that were undertaking a 40-mile bike ride at night to get the dumplings. Night? You mean the part of the day when there's no light? This can't stand! The ride became an attraction in itself, and by early November, some nights saw tens of thousands of Chinese students jumping on rental bikes and arriving in Kaifeng. Even though many of the riders seemed in patriotic spirits, waving Chinese flags and singing the national anthem, the growing engagement seems to have eventually spiked past the authorities' comfort level. They weren't comfortable with patriotism, the youth exercising and helping the economy. Forget the West, China's real greatest threat is their fear of success. Rumors soon started to go around that the night riders were not who they seemed, but were actually influenced by foreign forces. And according to a skeptical student from Zhengzhou, it might look like some of the students were in a patriotic mood, but they didn't look proud. Instead, most of them were expressionless. Rule of thumb, if your country judges how patriotic someone is based on how proud they look, it makes it real hard to be patriotic for that country. Beyond the rhetoric, many did start to see that the trend wasn't completely problem-free, with roads completely clogged by people on bikes some nights, and rental bikes abandoned in droves as students opted for public transportation back to Zhengzhou. Many of the students argued that these were logistical issues that could be dealt with through proper management, and not a matter of the night riders being part of some anti-China movement. At the same time, many of those that took part described the night ride to Kaifeng as a rare opportunity in today's China to be part of something big and spontaneous, with one student saying that we've done as we were told for more than 20 years now, and will likely have to go on doing as we're told for the rest of our lives, adding that I don't want to grow old without a single thing worth remembering. We're not getting any younger, so that's why we do stuff like this. Man, you know you live in an oppressive regime when riding a bicycle is seen as a fun, once-in-a-lifetime event. The highlight of someone's life should never be cardio. All the same, the crackdown came fast and heavy. The police began to impose traffic curbs, and the largest bike-sharing platforms began restricting use of their bikes to designated zones, while Chinese state media told students to grow up. Telling young people to stop acting like kids and grow up? Man, they've officially entered into Nickelodeon original movie villain territory here. On top of that, universities in Zhengzhou started to implement curfews for their students and spice them with nighttime dormitory inspections and gatherings in classrooms on weekends to watch propaganda movies. Unsurprisingly, the night ride trend lost steam after that. So for the CCP, mass tourism is great, as long as it's directed towards economic growth and telling China's story well, and can be brought to heel before it turns into a movement of inspired young people. And if propaganda movies, police blockades, and curfews don't bring inspirational movements to a stop, the CCP has plenty of harder-hitting tools to make it happen. Just ask this guy, Ghost. Still, you might be thinking right about now that locking people down to prevent them from traveling around China doesn't sound very Marco Polo-ish, but that's where you'd be wrong. Because after returning to Italy from the East, Marco Polo actually ended up spending more than 2 years at a Genoese prison. During this time, Marco Polo recounted his Eastern travels to his cellmates, one of whom later wrote it all down for posterity. So, you see, Getting shut down in your dorm is just as Marco Polo-like as traveling around China under the tight escort of a global Times panda named Dream. Besides, caging those students in Zhengzhou might actually end up being the best thing for everybody. After all, if locking up remarkable people is the best way to secure great works for future generations, then our descendants are going to have a lot to thank the CCP for in the centuries to come. And if you want more great China Uncensored content, especially videos hosted by Chris and not some rando with a mustache, check out ChinaUncensored.tv. That website has all the episodes from this YouTube channel, plus tons of additional premium episodes that YouTube would probably just try to censor. So get your premium subscription and go deeper down the China rabbit hole. Once again, I'm Matt Gnezda. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.